Hi, so I was just having to explain to my neighbor who lives right over there. She was talking about how she loves to look out and see my Christmas lights. She's the second person in my apartment building to tell me how much they love my Christmas lights, but they have no idea what it is. So I have the drapings here, and then over here on the wall I have the flying spaghetti monster. And so I was just having to explain to my neighbor what the flying spaghetti monster was. And so it has to do with the burden of proof on the existence of God. And so it has one of the first examples was Russell Bertrand's flying teapot, where Russell Bertrand said that you cannot prove a negative. So in an argument between somebody who believes in God and someone who doesn't believe in God, on where the burden of proof should lie, as far as asking a religious person to prove that God exists, and they can never come up with proof that God does exist. Where is he? How can you prove that anything that ever happens has anything to do with God, and not just just natural happenings? And the religious person tries to shift the burden of proof back onto the person who doesn't believe, and say, you can't prove that God doesn't exist, therefore he does exist. And Bertrand Russell says, you cannot prove a negative. For instance, you can't prove that there's not a flying teapot orbiting the sun somewhere between Earth and Mars. You can't prove that. The only way you could prove that is you'd have to survey, all of the space between Earth and Mars and around the sun, looking for this very small teapot. You'd never find it. And so the burden of proof, you can't prove a negative. So the burden of proof is on the positive. You have to prove that something does exist. And so another example of that is the flying spaghetti monster. This one came up in an argument about teaching creationism in school, where this guy said that something about how you have to respect all the different religions, because you have the Christianity, Islam, and all of these different religions. And so if you're going to be teaching Christianity in school, then you should also be teaching about the flying spaghetti monster. So if you say, well, the flying spaghetti monster doesn't exist, well, you could make the same argument for God and Christianity and all that. So it's kind of a fun way to poke at religious people. So the flying spaghetti monster, what it is so the two red areas is the meatballs, the white areas is the spaghetti or pasta. There's his eyes up there, and these are his noodly appendages, his arms and legs. And so just a fun way, kind of an atheistic view of the world. The flying spaghetti monster is their kind of fun deity that does or does not exist.